Okay, how's it going, everyone? Today we're going to be doing a video on concepts, strategies, and tips for using a balanced deck in Broken Arrow. And so we're just going to be expanding upon the knowledge that I've already put out there. And the deck that we're going to be using today to sort of go in depth in is the deck that's before you. So we have our basic balanced deck that we have a setup for that we put up a few days ago. So we're going to go ahead and get a sort of in-depth overview on that. Let's go ahead and go over the concepts and strategies and tips that I like to use for this. So first concept, this is the main one, so there's only one concept that you need to worry about, is the covering bases concept that I sort of talk about all the time in my videos. So in theory, all this means is being prepared for any situation. In other words, you don't want a situation that you cannot deal with in the game, excluding, certain ones like 1v5 or things that are similar to that, because those kind of situations, any deck can't really deal with that. But practically, this is what you want on the field. So you want to make sure you have AA to deal with helis, jets, or missiles. You want RD to counter enemy, RD, and armor. You want infantry to counter other infantry and to push the front. You want some form of support to the front. This could be in armor or in helis. You want an efficient and practical logistics system to resupply and regenerate units. You want some form of reconnaissance for intel, whether this be in the form of drones or in backline troops like snipers and whatnot. And you want some form of effective transportation. This looks like either using helis like ospreys or soars, or if you're using regular war pigs and whatnot. So this is the basic sort of concept that we're thinking about, like the foundation that we build everything from, at least for a balanced deck, and what we want to have in mind the entire time we're playing. So now general rules that we're going to have for each of the strategies that we're going to go into. There's 3 strategies, and the general rules that are going to apply for each of these strategies. And things that we're always going to do each game, something that it's just sort of a base foundation for the game, or for each multiplayer game that we go into. So the first one, always get packs first. No matter the strategy that we use, we must always get packs. These are super important. Make sure you get them, you separate them at a good distance, and you turn on the radar. You got to make sure we have these to defend against enemy jets, if they want to drop a nuke early in the game, you want to make sure you have those to defend against that. Always have packs in the beginning of the game. Get both of them, at least if you're using this deck. Second general rule, choose one side to fight. In other words, you want to choose either the left, middle, or right, and adjust as need basis. So this means if, let's say, you're at a stalemate on the left side, then go ahead and just feint that attack. We'll go over this strategy later on, but this is something that you only do as like a sort of last ditch effort. You're gonna know what battle to pick. So if you're struggling on the left side to stalemate, just keep pretending like you're gonna attack that while you move your main force to support the other sides. So choose one area, stick with it. And 3, never use air transportation in the beginning of the match. I've seen too many people use a SOAR or Osprey or whatnot, and just for them to get shot down, especially if it's not a stealthy transportation. Do not use it. If it's stealthy, like a wolf, or I think it's a gray wolf for the Rangers, go ahead and use those. Those are pretty stealthy, and they could go sort of undetected into the match, and those are pretty good. But most of the time, do not use, especially with this deck, do not use air transportation in the beginning of the match. It's just going to be free points for them. It's going to be free kills, and that you don't want that to happen. Wait until a little after the beginning of the match to go in and use air transportation. So let's go ahead and get into the first strategy. The first strategy while using a balanced deck is armor and infantry mix. So we'll go over each point. Then I'm also going to pull up a video to be able to use a reference. So the first point is we're going to make sure we have AA, which is essential for the front line. So I like to go with SHORADs, either to 1 or 2 of them. And then for the infantry mix and armor mix, we're having Bradleys. We're going to have them with either Stingers, Cav Scouts, or an infantry of your choice. Ideally, you want to have at least 1 Stinger, and then maybe you could have some Rangers Reconnaissance or 2 Cav Scouts in the other Bradley. And you want to make sure you push into the zone and let infantry go first. You want to have support with the Bradleys, and then have SHORADs close by to the main front line, but not close enough for them to get shot down by enemy vehicles or enemy tanks and whatnot. And you want to make sure you're also utilizing hit and run. So on the third point, do some damage quickly, get out quickly. So you have the Bradleys. They're not super strong against enemy tanks. They could get some hits off, especially if they have the tow missiles. You can get them, you can do some damage. But once you do the damage, get out of there. You guys don't want to be overwhelmed with the Bradleys. The things they're strong, but they're not going to be able to take a tank on 1v1. Unless they're turn around and you get a shot off, and be able to get 2 shots off the toe. So then you want, for this strategy, the heavy armor should be sent out after all this is done. So get your tanks after. You get about 1 to 2 tanks. It depends on what you want. So heavy armor should be sent out after this. So this will be mainly probably anywhere from 1 to 3 M1s. And then for the 5th one, infantry and supplies are coming in after tanks are sent out, because once you get the main heavy armor up there, it's not going to be too long until you're able to start supplying with infantry and some other supplies. And so, and then for the six point, you got to make sure you're firing and moving. Don't stay in one spot for arty. So once you get the infantry and the armor out there, keep moving. So once you get tanks up there, keep moving. And once you get your MLRS out there with the heavy armor, we should probably put this too. So heavy armor and arty will come out after all your basic light or your IFE, your Bradleys are up, and your Shorads are up there in your infantry. So once this is good, then you can go in and start pushing in heavy tanks and artillery. So now let's go ahead and look at a match that I have. So we'll go to this one. I believe it's for armor and infantry. This one. Go ahead and mute it. So as we look here, we get about 30 seconds in. I get about 2 Bradleys with, I think I choose, yeah, 2, what is it? I think I get 2 mechanized AA riflemen, because I really like to go anti-air here, and I get 1 Shorad. So this is for the first strategy that we're going to use when it comes to the balance deck, and we already have our Patriot packs. We have them a pretty, I think when the game starts in the beginning, we have them at a pretty safe distance from one another. Yeah, they're kind of separated. Let's see. And then we start getting more Bradleys with some other units, other infantry units. Yeah, so they're kind of separated there. So we have our Shorad, and we have 3 Bradleys with 2 with anti-air and 1 with range and reconnaissance. So we have enough support to push onto the objective. So as we were talking about, we get in there. Let's go ahead and zoom or quickly go into this. So this map, I'm mainly focusing on getting the A objective. And once we get there, I drop off my anti-air, start moving them up at a safe distance. We get a drone up for some reconnaissance. We could have a lay of the land. It gets some kills there, nothing crazy, or some damage there, nothing crazy. So let's go ahead. We're gonna go ahead and move up our Bradleys as we see here shortly. So they're all separated, guys. That's one thing I want you guys to notice too. You want to get shot by arty or by a ballistic missile and have all your units clumped up together. That's just an easy way for them to get killed and just lose loads of units and points. It's not worth it, so make sure they're separated. And we're going to go ahead and, like we said, we're going to go ahead and put our infantry, start moving them up first. So we have the Bradleys directly behind them for support, and we have the Shorads, the Shorads coming in up behind them. We have 2 AAs to back up the line just in case they want to push any helis or any ballistic missiles or jets. So that's what that looks like if you're using the first strategy of an armored infantry main. Let's go a little further. Yeah, so we start pushing up here. We have a ranges reconnaissance. We have some friendly support with missiles. We use our Bradleys to go in and put the pressure on them. And we're utilizing the hotkeys here as well by pressing G and making them fire on that position. So we're getting a decent push here. So getting closer, we see that one of our Bradleys is getting attacked by a guided missile, get shot, so we start retreating him. Know when to pull out, guys. It's important to retreat when necessary. You don't want to lose any of your units. I think I might have lost him, but we just keep putting the pressure on them. We have our units spread out quite a bit, and then as we can see, once we get all the units up there, as we said, we get the main one from the first point, we get our heavy armor. Right after that, so we have our tanks coming up to push up. And we have our MLRS in the back coming up. And we start laying down some fire in there. So that's the first strategy, basically, that we're utilizing here with the armor and infantry. So there's different strategies that you could use with each deck that you have, and there's 3 different strategies that I usually utilize when I'm playing with this balance deck. So we got our M1A2 Abrams pushing up in there. We have our Bradley going to start pushing back. Same with this one. We have our Shorad up there to sort of delay any heli push or any jet push. And we're getting shot at. You see there's a heli right there. We got 2 of them. So we lost that one. So we should have probably pushed excuse me, our AA anti-air Stinger missiles up to support our tanks. That wasn't the best idea to keep them back there. And we see our Shorad's already taking some damage too. Not the best situation so far. But this is one of the strategies that I like to use, especially for this deck. Let's go and go back. So we have our first strategy of armor and infantry mix. We kind of see how we use that there. We use a hit and run. So we, as you can see, pushing on the Bradleys, doing some damage, and then getting out of there quickly if we can. We try to make sure we're utilizing also fire and move. We're not going to stay in one spot for the arty. And then when it comes to infantry and supplies coming in, we want to make sure we're using, let's see, I believe I get supplies short. There we go. Yep. So we use, I believe it was the, let me see, the SOAR to drop supplies. We're trying to get some more units up there. And as we, like I said, guys, as long as you're able to retreat when necessary and push to your units back to resupply, you could get them back in there quickly and just get more units on the field. You don't want to sacrifice them when you could pull them back, regenerate them, and get more fire support for your friendlies. So we got there, we have our infantry and our supplies dropped right there. So that's perfect. So this is exactly what we're going to want to do in the strategy. So like I said, for the first one, you want to get your AA. So remember the general rule for all these strategies is that you're always going to get the packs first. Always. You're always going to choose one side to fight on, and you're never going to use air transportation in the beginning of the match. Remember, these rules apply for each of the strategies that we're going to talk about. And I'm sorry if it gets a little mumbly or jumbled up here in this video. I try not to do too much editing. I just want to keep it simple, keep it as transparent as possible. So it's going to be a little spotty here and there, but just bear with me. So there's our first strategy overall. We got our armor and infantry mix. So let's go into the second strategy. Now for this one, I believe it was, let me think. Yep, this video. So for this one, we're using our balance deck again. And this is the video that I posted not too long ago on how I use this deck. So obviously we got our 2 Patriot packs. We're spreading them out. And we got, I believe, 2 Shorads and 2 Bradleys. And then we're also, I think we're calling up even more Bradleys. So first, let's go back and actually go over the second strategy. So the second strategy for the armor first strat is that we have our AA. So we make sure we get Shorads. We got 2 Shorads. These will go first with other Bradleys. So around 2 to 4 Bradleys. Make sure we're utilizing hit and run tactics. Do some damage quickly. Get out quickly. We want to make sure we're saving our units. We don't want to just sacrifice them, guys. Then after that, we get our MLRS because we want to be able to put pressure on enemy vehicles once they start pushing our Bradleys, because our Bradleys are a lot quicker than most tank. They're going to be able to get in there and get out. So if we could use our MLRS and we could fire on our position, that way when the enemy's pushing on our position, we're not there, and Arty's already hitting there. So they'll fire on the tanks and Arty, and then we're going to also want our MLRS to move, so that way the other Arty's not locking onto our position and shooting out our MLRS. So after that, we're going to get about 2 to 3 tanks in this strategy for the armor first strat. These will help support an offensive push into enemy zones. These will support the Bradleys. They'll be our main front line. The Bradleys will be in the back, shooting tow missiles at other enemy tanks to support our main front line of tanks. And then make sure we're firing and moving. Don't stay in one spot for Arty. Like I said, guys, I cannot sort of emphasize this enough. It's really important that when you have vehicles that you're firing and you're moving, firing and moving. This applies to pretty much anything. Infantry, it's harder to do that, but it is important to do it as much as you can with them. And then after that, once all these points are done, or all those steps are done, you want your main infantry to come after armor. So the infantry can be quickly transported, and they also cost less too. So it's really important to get your main, at least for the armor first strat. You're gonna focus on your infantry later in the game. So, later in the game, I mean like 8-10 minutes in the game, or maybe even 6 to 8 minutes after your main force is there. So you'll get these guys there by using air transportation. So air vehicle transportation. I prefer air transportation, and if you're using air, make sure you drop them a good distance behind the front line, and you take supplies as well. So let's go ahead and look at this. So we have our Bradleys pushing up. So we go ahead and do that. I believe they take some fire. Yeah, they're getting some shots at this got a missile over here. They do some damage there. They get there pretty quickly. And then we have other Bradleys to support them as well. We have a reconnaissance up to get a sort of lay of the land. Get them there. We have our other Bradleys to support. I believe we also have our Shorads coming up, and we have packs. And then we have our Osprey as well. See? I think our tanks are coming in. I'm not entirely sure, but if I remember this video correctly. So we drop off our other infantry. So here we got some AA and some supplies. And what we're going to do here is we're going to keep, I believe we keep our Osprey in the back. Yeah. And we got a Comanche to support our units, especially our Bradleys, because these Bradleys will just get decimated by enemy helis. So we got our 2 shore adds. Like I said, to keep them close, you want these guys near the front line, but not directly on the front line. You want them there to protect your batteries from, or your main force from enemy helis or jets or missiles and whatnot. Because if you leave them there, they're going to be totally exposed and just going to get destroyed easily. So by having these shore adds here, able to get some defense up. So we got our Bradleys behind the buildings, which is important because it sort of limits the line of sight from enemy helis that are on the other side. And if they shoot missiles at them, we could quickly fast move our Bradleys like we do here, get behind the building so that way we could take cover. And perfect, our shore adds are doing some work there, taking out the enemy heli. Quite a few missiles there. Doesn't get I think they get the job done with that missile. Oh, nope, they don't. But so we see the other enemy helis moving in our position, so that's why it's super important to have those shore adds there, because if those Bradleys were there just by themselves, they'd probably get destroyed by that. And it's important to make sure you have, like I said, the main concept for each of these strategies in the deck is covering your bases. You want to make sure that for any situation that's presented to you, you're able to handle it. Like, I can't stress that enough. And with, thankfully we had active protection there, and that Bradley was able to get the job done on that thanks to the shore adds softening it up. So that's the second strategy that we use, is the armor main, or the armor strategy, the armor first strategy, where we get in mainly a bunch of our Bradleys to go first, supporting it with shore adds, and there we have the Comanche, but usually I like to put in some other heavy tanks to support it as well. And then we got our main infantry force pushing up too with the Osprey, so we drop in some artillery, some AA, Rangers, and whatnot. So that would be the second strategy, the armor first strat. So basically you want to have your shore adds for to help the Bradleys on the front line, and we want to make sure we hit and run. So once we get to position, we do the damage, we get out as quickly as possible. You get your MLRS next. I believe our MLRS was in the back there somewhere, if I can see. Where was it at? Oh, it's there somewhere. Yep, there it is right there. So we have our MRS to support, to destroy any arty or any vehicle pushed on us. So that is our sort of armor first strat. I could go maybe more in depth in the videos for this, but I just kind of want to give a basic overview of what I'm doing. Like, because I'm going in depth here, but I don't want to go spend too much time on the videos. I just want to focus on the strategies that I'm using and how you could approach using this deck. So that's the second strategy. So after we do the first steps, or the first 2-3 steps, then we could go on and adjust it as we need. Like I said, you don't always have to follow this to the T, but at least the first 2 steps of each of these strategies you're going to want to follow, as you can see as I do. For the first one, like I said, your shore adds, your Bradleys, mix them with infantry, mainly have stingers, and then depending on what you want, you can choose your own infantry, and you push it in the zone, and you let the infantry go first, support your Bradleys, and have shore adds close by. So I think the most important steps in any of these strategies, any of these 3 strategies that I'm presenting, is going to be the first 2 steps. So as long as you're following those, then everything else can come after, or you can kind of change it up to and sort of do as you wish. There's some autonomy here. So for the third strategy, this strategy is more risky, but it's there's not that many steps. It's kind of flexible. It's more flexible than the other ones. So for this one, we're going to go into the other video. I believe it is this video. But first, let's go ahead and go to the steps. So for this strategy, the Recon / infantry flank, for this you're going to want to get 2 MAs. So these guys are really good. They're sort of anti-tanks. They have, I think, 18 munitions for destroying enemy vehicles. You want to get pararescue for anti-infantry, and then whatever other infantry you want to put. And I usually take the Warpig because that's my only ground vehicle transportation, and you're going to want to take the long route to their spawn. Right. So this is the strategy is focusing on sort of getting to their vehicle spawn and just destroying, causing mayhem behind the lines. That's what this third strategy is for. I don't use this all the time, but when I do, it's pretty fun. So this is the Recon / infantry flank, and you're going to use this to push in. Use this to push after you're disrupting behind the enemy lines. You're going to use this time to push in with units into the zone while the enemy's preoccupied, trying to take out your units that are destroying their units at their spawn. And you could have, this one's pretty flexible, as I said. You could have a mix of units. It's a pretty flexible strategy here. So as we can see in the video, I have them, they're all coming all the way in the back. So we have, in this one I remember, we have 2 MAs, a pararescue, and I believe, no, 3 MAs and a pararescue. And these guys just start obliterating the enemy. We got some stingers here as well. Yep, look right here. So with this one, we took the long route. So what I do here, let's go back to the beginning. What I like to do is I spawn them, and I will choose somewhere all the way in the back. So let me see if I can find the route that I take with these guys. I wonder if I could speed it up. I don't think I can. So once I get the Patriot packs, I can, one of the general rules, always get a Patriot pack, but those should have been separated. I didn't do that there. That could have been really costly. Yep, if that missile didn't get shot down, those Patriot packs would have got destroyed. So basically, if you could look, I'm taking the super long route, so I kind of go all the way back here, and I go all the way around, and I get to their spawn. See, they think they bank right. They go right. Yep, they go right, and they go all the way around. So that's what you're gonna want to do with this strategy, especially if you're going for a disruption behind their enemy lines. You want to make sure that you're taking the long route with this flank, because if you just go down the middle, they're gonna get shot up, and it's just not gonna work at all. So make sure you use these guys. Do a long flank. You can actually fast move them and hold shift and get them where you want to go specifically. So once those guys get there, right here. So these units they're pretty quickly if I remember. And I just push them up there right on the enemy's spawn. And this strategy is really good for that. And then while that's happening, you could have your other main force, whatever you want, usually to push into the zone to support your friendlies. And look at that. They just spawn a whole bunch. When they start spawning a whole bunch of units, immediately just get destroyed. And that's good for a while. It's a little risky, depending on what they get. Like, it's not always worth it. And then these guys, my Stingers are out of ammo because they're shooting down some other helis. But as you can see, it forced him to drop a bunch of units behind over there. Like, instead of him focusing on the objective, he had to focus on the back line. Like, it's really good at disrupting the enemy and just stressing them out and having you destroy those units in there, because if they keep them there, they're just going to keep destroying all their spawn. And so, like, I got my pararescue, my ranger reconnaissance to go ahead and start holding them off, so at least these moths can get some more kills. I should have only put about, I think, how many moths did I have there? Only 2. That's fine, but that's usually about what you're going to want to bring, because look at these guys. They have 18 munitions for that rocket launcher. Super good. Has a pretty high pen too, so you can destroy most vehicles. So that's how you're going to want to use the third strategy for recon / infantry flank. So let me see. I even want to talk about we went over the first strategy pretty well. That's what I like to do with the armor and infantry mix. You have, a decent. So as long as you're following the first 2 steps, and in the strategy, you can adjust it to how you see fit. So instead of getting the MLRS, if you just want to get tanks first, go ahead and do that. And then for this one, instead of utilizing the runs more of a pointer, but if you want, instead of using heavy armor, if you just want to bring in a bunch of infantry, go ahead and do that too. You can adjust how you see fit. But this is sort of my general overview of how I play, especially with these strategies. And I think the strategy that I use the most is probably the armor and infantry mix. This is the one that I mainly go into the games and what I'm usually doing. And this one plays out pretty well. The most risky one is probably the recon / infantry flank. It's good, but like if you could lose if those units, like if they're also doing the same thing, or if they have units that spot you, like, then it's just game over. But other than that, I think the one with the least amount of risk with the most reward is going to be the armor first strat and the armor and infantry mix. And I think both for this game, let's actually go over more the armor first strat and seeing what I'm also doing when I'm going against. Let's see. I believe this is the armor first strat. Yep. So we get all our armor there first. So one of the ways I like to also use the heli transportation, and so as we see here, we make sure we want to, like I said, the main concept that you want to use for any of these strategies is covering your bases. We want to make sure that we have anti-air support for our ground units. If we don't have that, then we're going to get screwed. So that I use the killer eggs here to take out those enemy helis, so that way my Bradleys could push in, but we got shot there with a ballistic missile, so that wasn't really good. I probably should have pushed my packs up a little bit more, so that way we could take out any ballistic missiles that shoot at us. But here we did not do that. Next time we'll get it. But here we were able to take out the enemy air. We use our killer eggs. Those guys are only about 65 points, so I mean they're trading off with that other heli, and that's probably 200, 300 points right there. So we're getting pretty good money's worth here. Then we got our Shorad. We got our 2 Shorads, and we got 1 Bradley there. We were able to hold. I think we were able to take G on this point and able to take F. And so we have our 2 AAs right there, as you can see, with our other Bradley and our Rangers. And we have more units coming up to support. So this is the one that I like to play here and there, probably half and half with the armor and infantry main strategy. But here it's just pretty simple. There's different strategies you could use, guys. See whichever one works for you. I like probably going the first two strategies the most. The reconnaissance, the flanking one is fun to do, but it's just a little more risky and not always worth it. But it's still something that can get the job done, and it's super satisfying too once it happens. And then here, I think they got a pretty good push here. Where can I see that at? Oh yeah, so that's where I got a bunch of cavalry scouts in the front line. When I supported them with my helis, got them there quickly, and they were just able to help take out these units. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much it for these strategies. There's not too much else to say about them, and then I will go into some tips that I use and strategies that I use with the vehicles and units in a few minutes here. But yeah, just to go over them again. So general rules: always get our packs first, no matter the strategy. We must get our packs for air defense, especially against the helis, ballistic missiles, nukes, and so on. Make sure you're choosing one side to fight on. It could be left, middle, right, and then adjust as needed during the game. And never use air transportation in the beginning of a match. It's super important, guys. Like, oh, actually, let me show you guys what happened when someone did this. Let's go here. I believe... is it this one? No, it's not this one. There was... Basically, it could get shot down pretty easily in the beginning of the game. So just, I try to avoid using that until maybe a few minutes after. At least I know that I'm aware of all the jets being shot down, so that way there's no, nothing threatening my air transportation. So if the first strategy, armor and infantry mix, you make sure you get at least 2 shore adds, 1 to 2 shore adds. Get some Bradleys. You want to have, I always go with Stingers, and then you could choose either Cav Scouts or whatever infantry of your choice. When you push into the zone, make sure you let your infantry go first. You'd rather have them get destroyed than your Bradleys get destroyed. Bradleys are more expensive, but you want to make sure they're close enough by so that way they could actually support the infantry and not just have them get shot up. And then your shore adds are going to be really close to the front line, but not too close, so they're getting shot up as much as the main front line is. You want them there just to back up to make sure you're keeping your Bradleys and your infantry safe from any helis or jets or whatnot. And so make sure you're utilizing hit and run. So let's get in there with our Bradleys, get out, do some damage, get out quickly. Have our heavy armor and arty should be sent out after this is done. The infantry and supplies could be coming after the tanks are set out, because the infantry can get there pretty quickly with the supplies since we have our Sowar and our Osprey. And then again, just make sure we're firing moving. When you're using the arty, don't stay in one spot with the arty, fire, and then move to a different position. You don't want to get shot down, because that's something, when you fire, they could see where you're at, and if they ping you, at least then if they shoot there, they're wasting munitions, and it's just really important not to stay in the same spot. So for our second strategy, again, our AA, we're getting 2 shore adds for this one, for our armor first one, since we're going to be mainly focusing on armor. So these will go first with the other Bradleys. I get about 2 of our Bradleys. You don't have to have any infantry with them. Make sure we're utilizing hit and run, do some damage quickly, and get out. And then I like to get the MLRS next, so that way if we do go against up enemy heavy tanks, we're able to take them on with our MLRS. And then I find it better to get the MLRS than the tanks, because the tanks take quite a while to get there. With the MLRS, at least we have the range, and we can lay down some fire and sort of deter them from moving up. So again, fire and move, don't stay in one spot for arty. And then after we do, or then again, a lot of this is adjustable, so do this or adjust it how you see fit. If you want to switch it up and get the tanks or the arty, that's fine. If you want to send your infantry before the armor, that's fine too. Just this is just some sort of something that I like to do and share it with you guys, see if you want to follow it as well. And so for our last strategy, the recon / infantry flank, again, make sure we're utilizing our Moz here. Pararescue for our anti-infantry, and then whether infantry you want in the war pig, and make sure we're taking the long route to their spawn. And then once you have this there, and they're causing disruption and causing stress and pressure on the enemy, you want to use this time to push in with other units into the zone while the enemy is preoccupied. And then here you could have the mixed units. It's a flexible strategy. Now going into non-specific strategies, for this one it's mainly advised to pick your battles, right? So in other words, know when to move on. If you're at a stalemate, just sort of, I like to portray a feint. So like, just pretend like, act like you're gonna take that zone, but you're really not. You're not committing to it. Just make them think that you are, so that way they keep their units there to protect it. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna reposition to support friendlies to push into different zones, and you keep feinting as if you're going to full force attack the zone that you left. But in reality, you're choosing your battles. You're staying. You're just gonna feint that attack, and you're gonna reposition yourself to support your friendlies. So that way, that guy's staying over there, and you're not really attacking. You're acting like you're attacking, but your full force is actually switching over to a different zone to help support that, take that zone. And by the time he realizes, it's already too late. And then the second non-specific strategy is just airdropping units as a safeguard slash small push. So if you're like, you're winning pretty well, and you want to just like get units there quickly, and you don't want to worry, and you want to take a large amount of units with a large amount of supplies, airdrop is usually the way to go. Get them there, and you're able to have that there as sort of a backline just in case, or even a small push. You just want to get them and start pushing, putting the pressure on with the amount of pressure that you have in the game. And so for our last tips, we want to make sure using our hotkeys. Our hotkeys are super important in Broken Arrow. Like using R to reverse, using U to drop off units. Make sure we're pressing X to pop the smoke when you want them, and just it's really important. Using F for fast move, and if you hold Shift, you could plot out where you want them to go. So like if you hold Shift and left click, it tells them they need to go there, and you keep left clicking, they'll follow that route that you selected for them. And then also make sure you're using V for changing the height of your air units. So like let me actually go into one of the videos here. This one we did lose, but I'll show you what I mean by making use of the hotkeys. So if I could go, where is it? Somewhere around here. I believe it's with our Comanches, yeah. So with our Comanches, we utilize their change in altitude, and we keep them behind the forest, and that way we're able to still attack the enemies while not being fired upon. So here I kind of forgot to change the altitude once I did it. Or actually, no, I think I did change the altitude. But I didn't get him out of a good enough position, or give him good enough cover to avoid that AA. But they were having some struggle with that, so we were able to get them out of there a little bit. But you use the velocity change for your helis to get them out of trouble, and also to position them so that way they could put fire on without being fired upon. That's really important as well. And so so the hotkeys, going over that, I could go over more in depth of the hotkeys, but in the game, if you go into settings, you can see all the hotkeys there. So hotkeys are super important too, because it gives you more control over the units that you have, and it allows you to save them a lot quicker too. Like sometimes they might not pop smoke quick enough, and if you select them and pop smoke for them, you might have saved that unit. So hotkeys can be really life or death in these situations. So for the second tip, don't RTB air transport if you still have supplies. So what I mean is, if you have supplies on the ground and you have a SOAR or an Osprey nearby, just pull them back. That's one of the things that I like to do when you have an Osprey or a SOAR, for example, like over here. I like to keep my Osprey at a safe distance. So like right here. So I drop off. Let's see, where is that? I drop off supplies there, and I keep my SOAR over here. I keep them at a safe distance. So that way, once, say, whatever is over here is done resupplying, and there's still like 3,000 supply left, I'll go pick it up and I'll move it to a different area. And that way, it's kind of, you're using it like a sort of ground vehicle transportation for supply, but to me it's a lot quicker, and it's, as long as you're keeping it at a safe distance, it's going to be really effective in this situation. So for the next tip, always move RD after firing. Don't get counter RD. Now, I've explained this a little bit in the strategies that I've talked about, but I can't really go into this a lot enough. I mean, because it's just super important. You don't want to be staying in the same spot. You're just pretty much saying, "Hey, come and hit me with my RD," right? Or with your RD. If you stay in the same spot, you're just telling everyone where you're at, and it's a free kill. Fire and move. Fire and move. Super important. For the fourth tip, you want to use air transportation like Osprey to move supplies like you would with a vehicle, but at a safer distance. So as I just explained, use them like a regular supply. So get 3,000-4,000 supply, drop them off, move your Osprey maybe about 200-300 meters back in a safe distance, keep them at a low altitude, and then once the friendly units are done getting the supplies, they've resupplied or they're regenerated, go in and pick that supply back up and go transport it wherever else it needs to be. To me, that's a really good way of using air transportation. Another important part or another important tip is spreading your units apart. It's super important to make sure that units are spread apart. If you pile them up and they get shot at with arty or a ballistic missile, dude, that's just like maybe 500 to 1,000 points that just gone to waste because you don't want to separate your units. It's super important to keep them safe, keep them apart. You don't want to be taken out by just one little thing of arty or one ballistic missile, right? Make sure you protect your units, keep them safe, spread them apart. For the sixth tip, pay attention to the spending points that you have. A lot of times, especially for me, I struggle with this, is paying attention to how many points I have. Sometimes I let them build up without intentionally letting them build up, right? So if you have an intent to let them build up to 1,000 or above 1,000, but you're using that for a specific purpose, like a bomber, a B2 bomber to drop a nuke, okay, I understand that. But if you're just letting them build up without paying attention to them, you're kind of at a disadvantage there. You want to make sure that you're utilizing all those points so that way you could have the supplies, the support that your units need, right? Make sure that you don't let that get out of hand. That's something that I'm working on too. Tip number 7, utilize altitude chains for helis. Hide them behind objects to disrupt line of sight while firing on enemies, as I've stated. Yeah, it's really important, guys. You want to protect your units while they can still fire, and it's a big advantage if the enemy can't fire into them. For number 8, you want to make sure you're saving your vehicles. In other words, if they're at half health or more or less, you gotta fix that. Pull them back to regen, right? You want to save your vehicles. Like, don't just sacrifice your vehicles in a fight they can't win. If they do the damage they can, get them out when you can, right? So if it's one Bradley versus, let's say, a vehicle with a tow and maybe some infantry, and they do pretty good amount of damage, but then they get shot and it's half health, just pull it back. Pop that smoke, pull them back, use reverse and get them to a safe distance and resupply them. So that way they're not, free kills, and just regroup, resupply, and do what you can to be more effective. So tip number 9, just know when to retreat, whether it be with vehicles or your regular units. If your units are low or outnumbered, just regroup and regen. Like, it's more important to save your units, save the units that you have, because if you have to replace those units all the time, it's just a constant back and forth. If you're able just to keep supplying them with an Osprey, and it's going to be a lot of stress on the enemy, because then if they're always losing their units, they're always constantly have to resupply them. But if you have your units there and they're never dying, if they get to a low one but you're able to resupply them and regenerate them, then it's going to be more efficient and effective, right? You're not going to always constantly have to bring units back and forth. They're already there. You just have to bring supplies to them, which is quicker, and you're not spending as much points either, right? It costs I think 10 points for 1,000, or is it 1,000 supply points or supply for your units. I'd rather spend 10 to 20 points for that than having to do another whole 80 or 90 for another infantry group, and for the time it takes from to get to point A to point B. It just much rather have them retreat and regroup and regenerate. Alright, so that's pretty much it for the video, guys. The concept, strategies, and tips that I have for using a balanced deck. It's a little, wasn't the best video I have here. I wish it would have been a little more effective at explaining my strategies, but I hope this helped. I'm trying to do better at my speaking here, so have some grace with me. But and let me know if you guys have any strategies that you use for a balanced deck, or any tips that I'm missing, any strategies you think might work for this deck. I really like to hear what you guys have to say in the comments. So yeah, with that being said, I'll catch you guys in the next one.